On the night of December 30th, 1884, a 25-year-old cook named Molly Smith finished her work in a home in West Austin and went to sleep in a small cabin behind the main house. She never woke up. Her employer found her the next morning, dragged from her bed into the yard, her head split open by an axe. A man named Walter Spencer, who had been sleeping nearby, was also attacked, badly wounded, barely alive. The axe was still there, left behind in the dirt near her body. And pressed into that dirt, something the Austin police noticed immediately: bare footprints, footprints leading away from the cabin into the dark. Footprints they detailed they would keep secret from the public for an entire year. One of those feet had only 4 toes. Molly Smith was the first. In the 12 months that followed, 7 more people would die the same way. Attacked in their beds, dragged into the darkness, murdered with an axe. By the time it was over, Austin, Texas would be a city under siege. 400 men arrested, not one conviction. And the killer? Never caught. This is the story of the servant girl Annihilator, America's first serial killer and the oldest cold case in the state of Texas. On the grass won't wash away undetected footprint. To understand how a killer operated for an entire year without being caught, you have to understand the city he hunted in. Austin in 1884 was not the city it is now. The population was roughly 15,000. The streets were unpaved. There was no electric lighting, only gas lamps, and not many of them. After sundown, most of the city was dark. The police force was small, underfunded, and overwhelmed. There was no detective division, no fingerprinting, no forensic science. If a killer didn't confess and no one saw him do it, there was almost nothing the law could do. And in this darkness, someone began hunting servant girls. The term servant girl in 1880s Austin meant something Pacific. These were young women, most of them African American, some of them immigrants, who worked as cooks, cleaners, and domestic laborers in white households across the city. They lived in small cabins or back rooms behind the homes where they worked, isolated, alone at night, doors that often didn't lock. They were the most vulnerable people in Austin, and someone had decided they were prey. The first attack came on December 30th, 1884. Molly Smith, age 25, killed with an axe while she slept. Walter Spencer, the man sleeping in the same cabin, survived, but just barely. The city took notice, but a single murder of a black servant girl in 1884 Texas did not create a crisis. The newspaper covered it, people talked, and then for nearly 3 months, nothing happened. Until March 19th, 1885, 2 Swedish servant girls, Clara Strand and Christine Martinson, were attacked in their beds the same way. Both survived. Both described an intruder with an axe. Now the pattern was visible, but still the killer was not finished. Eliza Shelley, murdered in her bed. Her children found her body, her skull destroyed by an axe blow. Irene Cross, killed with a knife, the only victim not attacked with an axe. But the signature was the same: attacked in bed, dragged outside. Mary Ramey, 11 years old. 11. Murdered while she slept next to her mother, Rebecca, who was also attacked and left for dead. 11 years old. Gracie Vance and her boyfriend, Orange Washington, attacked together in the same bed, both killed. Orange was the only male victim. He died because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, sleeping next to the woman the killer wanted. By September 1885, Austin was unraveling. 7 people were dead. Multiple others had been attacked and survived. The police had arrested dozens of men. None of them were the right one. The newspapers were openly attacking the police chief. Citizens were forming armed patrols to walk the streets at night, and still the killer kept going. Here's what the police knew by the fall of 1885. Every victim was attacked indoors while asleep. Most were struck in the head with an axe, the same weapon or same type of weapon every time. 5 of the murdered women had been dragged, still alive, from their beds into the yard, where they were sexually assaulted and killed. 3 were mutilated after death. 6 of the women had a sharp object inserted into their ears. A detail so specific and so strange that investigators believed it had ritual meaning. And every single crime scene had the same piece of evidence: bare foot in the dirt. The killer took off his boots before entering. He moved silently. No dogs barked. No one woke up until the axe was already coming down. In one of those footprints, the left foot had only 4 toes. The police never released this detail to the public, not to the newspaper, not to the vigilante patrols, not to the families of the dead. They kept it locked down, hoping that one day a suspect would take off his boot and the evidence would be waiting. What they did not know was the murders were about to change, and that change would push the city to the breaking point. December 24th, 1885, Christmas Eve. Up until this night, every murder victim had been black or working class. The city's powerful white establishment had been concerned but not panicked. The victims were servants. The victims lived in parts of the town that people with money did not visit. That changed on Christmas Eve. Susan Hancock was a white woman. She was married. She was not a servant. On the night of December 24th, she went to sleep in her own bed, in her own home, with her 16-year-old daughter beside her. The killer came through the window. Susan Hancock was dragged from her bed into the yard. Her daughter survived. When the police arrived, they found Susan's body in the same condition as every other victim. Head wounds from an axe, posed in the signature manner, a sharp object driven into her ear. That same night, less than a mile away, 17-year-old Eula Phillips were also murdered. Same method, same weapon, same signature. Eula was white. She was young, and she was the 8th and final victim. 2 white women murdered on Christmas Eve. Now the city went to war. The New York Times ran a front page story on December 26th, headline, 3 murders in one night. The article reported that 400 men had been arrested over the course of the year, 400, and the killer was still out there. The police force was tripled in size overnight. A curfew went into effect. Saloons were forced to close at midnight. Strangers had to identify themselves or be expelled from the city. And then 2 men were charged with murder, not for being the servant girl Annihilator, for killing their own wives. James Phillips, the husband of Eula Phillips, was arrested and tried. Witnesses testified that he had repeatedly threatened to kill Eula if he ever found her unfaithful. He was known to have violent outbursts. A jury convicted him of second-degree murder. But then his defense team introduced evidence that would change everything. Floorboards from the Phillips house, bloody footprints on the wood, footprints that did not match James Phillips' feet, footprints with 4 toes on the left foot. His conviction was overturned. Moses Hancock, Susan Hancock's husband, was also tried. His defense team brought in Sheriff Malcolm Hornsby, who testified about something extraordinary. The sheriff had made a plaster cast of a dead man's foot, a man named Nathan Elgin, a man missing his left toe, a man whose footprint matched the bloody footprints at the Phillips crime scene, Ramey crime scene. The jury in Moses Hancock's trial could not reach a verdict. Hung jury. He walked free. Nathan Elgin was 19 years old. He was a black cook who worked in homes across Austin, homes close to where the murders occurred. He had a criminal record for carrying a pistol and getting into street fights. In 1882, he sent a threatening letter to a deputy sheriff, promising to whip, destroy, and kill him. He was described as reckless and bloodthirsty, and he was missing a toe on his left foot. In February 1886, 2 months after the Christmas Eve murders, Nathan Elgin dragged a young woman from a saloon into a nearby house in East Austin. Neighbors heard her screaming. They heard him beating her. A police officer named John Bracken arrived and tried to take Elgin into custody. Elgin threw off the 2 men who were trying to restrain him. He knocked Officer Bracken to the ground. He pulled a knife. Bracken drew his pistol and fired. Nathan Elgin died the next day, paralyzed from the bullet lodged in his spine, and during the autopsy, doctors know that the sheriff already suspected. Elgin's left foot had only 4 toes. After his death, there were no more servant girl murders, not one. The PBS program History Detectives re-examined the case in 2014 using modern psychology, profiling, and geographic analysis. They concluded that Nathan Elgin was the most likely perpetrator. His age, his location, his criminal history of violence against women, his written threats, and the physical evidence of his foot all point in the same direction. But he was never convicted. He was never even charged while he was alive. And because he died before anyone could connect him definitely to all 8 murders, The case remains officially unsolved. There is another theory, one that connects the oldest cold case in Texas to the most famous serial killer in history. In October of 1888, 3 years after the Austin murder stopped, a newspaper editor at the Atlanta Constitution noticed something. The Whitechapel murders in London bore a disturbing resemblance to the servant girl murders in Austin. Women from the lowest class of society attacked at night, mutilated, the killer disappearing in the darkness. The theory spread. Scotland Yard was reportedly interested. According to the authors of Jack the Ripper, A to Z, London authorities questioned American cowboys who had traveled to England with Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, including a man named Buck Taylor, who was born in Fredericksburg, Texas, just 70 miles from Austin. Another account placed Malaya Cook, described as Malay, or possibly named Maurice, living in a rooming house near the Austin crime scenes in 1885. In August of 1888, days before the first Jack the Ripper murder, a sailor in London reported being told by a Malay cook that he had been robbed by a woman and would murder every woman in Whitechapel if he didn't get justice. The dates line up, the methods overlap, but there is no hard evidence, no ship manifest, no name that connects both crime scenes. Just a theory that has never been proven and almost certainly never will be. What is certain is this: the servant girl Annihilator killed 8 people in Austin, Texas, and was never brought to justice. He predates Jack the Ripper by 3 full years, before H. Holmes, before the Axemen of New Orleans, before the term serial killer even existed. This was America's first. In 1895, the city of Austin erected a series of 165-foot tall metal towers across the city, each topped with carbon arc lamps that cast a bright, unnatural light across entire neighborhoods. They were called Moonlight Towers. Austin is the only city in the United States that still has them. You can see them today. 17 of the original 31 still stand. They were built partly in response to the servant girl murders. A city that had been haunted in the dark decided to never be dark again. The man who gave the killer his name, the servant girl Annihilator, was a young writer living in Austin at the same time of the murders. His name was William Sidney Porter. You know him as O. Henry. In a letter to a friend dated May 10th, 1885, he wrote, "Town is fearful dull, except for the frequent raids of the servant girl Annihilators, who make things living in the dull hours of the night. Who make things lively in the dull hours of the night." He was joking. The city was not laughing. 8 people were dead. Molly Smith, Elijah Shelley, Irene Cross, Mary Ramey, 11 years old Grace Vance, Orange Washington, Susan Hancock, Eula Phillips. 6 more were attacked and survived. No one was ever convicted. And after 141 years, the case remains exactly what it was on Christmas morning, 1885. Open, unanswered, cold. The oldest cold case in Texas. On the grass won't wash away undetected.